How can Leeds United become even better, everybody? Yes, we're going to be getting into that straight away. Make sure you're liking the content. Make sure you subscribe to the One Leeds Fan Channel and all the good stuff. We've got additional bits on Patreon if you want to go check that out. We've compiled a lot of this from SofaScore and FBref. So let's get into why this Leeds United player, in my opinion, could win Leeds United the league. So the reason I wanted to speak on this initially, everybody, is because I think there are levels that Leeds United can definitely go to, and I think the involvement of this individual makes Leeds United go to that next level, in my personal opinion. I've compared him to a few other people, and I'm just trying to get that understanding backed up by a little bit of data metric on how Leeds United are going to be able to get the best out of this individual, but altogether, accumulatively, get the greater squeeze out of this Leeds United squad. So, the natural fan opinion, keep the side as it is, okay? Which I completely understand. Consistency breeds success. I ultimately completely understand where people are coming from via that perspective. But from my perspective, and it's always been sort of one with the eye test, but I wanted to go away and look at a few data, like quantitative bits behind it, and I have done that. And it is Pascal Strout coming back into this Leeds United side after the international break. Quoted by Daniel Farke as the cornerstone of this side, and Farke has also spoke about him glowingly when he's been out. You know, this was his captain 13 out of 14 times leading up to his injury, and this is someone who Daniel Farke massively respects and appreciates, hence why he was in his starting 11 from day dot. Now, the fan opinion is that Pascal doesn't come back in. Ethan Ampadu has been part of this winning run, which has been unbelievable. 12 wins in 13 for the Whites, an insane 2024 standing. I think I do get a little bit confused as to why this becomes a Pascal versus Ampadu debate. Why we're not talking about Gruev in there. Why we're not talking about Yo Pro coming out for Pat Bamford. Why we're not talking about Sam Byram coming out for a consistent and dependable at last Junior Firpo. Those things sort of get swept under the proverbial carpet, and it becomes Ethan Ampadu is a miles better defender than Pascal Strout. I've never understood that, never will, and quite frankly, it's completely wrong. So what I've tried to do is break it down into sort of a format of which I value a defender and I value a midfielder. So off the bat, I rate Ethan Ampadu so highly as a midfielder. It's insane. I think he's a tier 1 footballer. I would argue that he'd be sort of a top 10, 12 tier 1 footballer as well. And I think in that position, he was the Championship's best midfielder, which is a massive credit to him. Bought for £7 million when he hadn't been playing really that much in central midfield over his last 3 to 4 years when it comes to his professional development. He's coming in and been absolutely insane. But what I've done is compared Ampadu's last 5 games, which have been really decent. Leeds have won 4 out of 5, to Pascal Strout's last 5 games, where Leeds won 2 out of 5 and failed to pick up 3 points in 3 of the games. And I wanted to do this because I thought this was Leeds' dark patch of the season. Obviously, there was the start, which was just us feeling into it, really. But when we'd got into the good point of the season, when Leeds were winning games, this was a little bit of a blip. And there might be a blip that will still commence and still come. But this was a problem at Christmas. We'd drawn to Coventry. When we've been dominating the game, we let them back into it in the last minutes, I should say. We also got well beaten, really, by Preston and Sunderland. So these were all in Pascal Strout's last 5 games. And I just wanted to give, from the perspective of, we'll talk about Pascal's probably worst period at that point, and we'll talk about Ethan Ampadu's probably better period at this moment in time, and compare the last 5 games and see where we're actually at. So naturally, from corners and set pieces, Pascal Strout was superior and has been superior to Ethan Ampadu. But I'm not going to focus on that too much because, listen, Pascal's 4 or 5 inches bigger than him, so you kind of expected him to be the headerer away of the ball alongside Joe Roda. I'm not going to judge Ethan too harshly on that. I think he's about 5'10" anyway, so it's going to be a bit difficult for him to compete with Pascal Strout here. So what I'm going to do is discuss the carries, which actually comprises on FBref of touches on the ball. And you'd expect, this is so interesting, because you'd expect Ethan Ampadu to have a lot of the ball, and he does. In his last 5 games, his carries have been at 282, which is a large portion of Leeds United's carries, touches from the back. Pascal Strout in his last 5 games for Leeds United before the injury had 330. Now, the reason why this is so important is because there is a filter, a funnel through Pascal Strout to get Leeds United up the pitch. We're going to get into that a little bit later on. But Ethan Ampadu is the man who moves the ball out of the back line for Leeds United at this moment in time, the reliance has been so heavy on Pascal Struijk that Leeds wouldn't even really progressively go through Joe Rodon. It would all be through Pascal Struijk. And Leeds really, and other teams really struggled to almost deal with that because Pascal was so good at moving through the lines as well. But now there's been a bit more of a reliance on Joe Rodon. That's also backed up by the stats, really, of Joe Rodon trying to move through the thirds as well. We saw that against Leicester City, and we've seen that more recently against Sheffield Wednesday as well. So with Pascal Struijk, there was just a huge reliance on him to start and create everything, and he did it very, very well. So when we're talking about the carries as well, when we're bringing in, I wanted to bring in Wout Faes as well from Leicester, and I wanted to bring in his last 5 games as well, because probably similarly to Pascal Struijk, those 5 games didn't go and haven't gone as well for Wout Faes, which has been great for Leeds United. In terms of progressive carries in those last 5 games, and this is the tactical onus that Daniel Farke puts on Pascal Struijk, Pascal Struijk carried the ball from his back line 13 times. Okay, now we look at Ethan Ampadu and we think, wow, he does do a hell of a lot in terms of progressive carries. He doesn't get close to those numbers when it comes to average per game as well. And Ethan Ampadu has brought the ball out 6 times in his last 5 games, where the onus has been on him a hell of a lot, if we're being honest. There's obviously a bit of a balance with Rodon, but the onus is on Ethan Ampadu to be that productive player. Pascal Struijk in his last 5, where Leeds was struggling, 13 times. And Wout Faes, as I said, similar game state in terms of them losing a fair few times in their last 5. He carried the ball out 6 times as well in his last 5, which just solidifies what I was saying earlier on. The onus put on Pascal Struijk to not only bring us out from the back, but turn us into an attacking team from the back has been absolutely massive, and something that Daniel Farke has reflected on several times. So already when we're looking at carries and then progressive carries, we're seeing how the 4-2-3-1 system from Daniel Farke is all about the backline building up, and it funnels through a certain player. It funneled through a certain player at Norwich with Ben Godfrey. It funnels through a certain player at Leeds United in Pascal Struijk. And those numbers, even when Leeds United was struggling in those 5 games, his last 5 games are really, really, really impressive. Now, another thing I wanted to focus on was shot creating actions. These are 2 actions that lead to a chance. So Ethan Ampadu, as a midfielder who's gone centre-back, has had some really, really impressive shot creating actions. Really impressive from centre-back. Let me just read these out. Sheffield Wednesday, he had 2. Bearing in mind these lead to a chance. Stoke 3, Huddersfield 3, Plymouth 2. Now, a standard defender, shot creating chances, it's probably 2, on average 2, I think it is, when you're looking at a fair few of the defenders online. Pascal's as average is 3. Wout Faes' average is 3. They're defenders. So you would say, well, hold on a minute, Connor. That's incredible. Shot creating actions, and you look at how many of these long balls were happening against Sheffield Wednesday. But Ethan Ampadu, as a defensive midfielder, was already doing this over 3.5 per game shot creating actions from midfield. His highest of the season, these are actions leading to a chance, was Coventry 8, which is so impressive from Ethan Ampadu. And for me, it illustrates what we are losing in that midfield at this moment in time when it comes to a pivot, not only in Glenn Kamara, who goes forward and doesn't really add that many in terms of goals and assists. Well, he doesn't, does he? But you're also losing a lot in terms of Gruev to Ampadu, because Ampadu got involved in a lot of the attacks as well. Now, also, when you're looking at Ethan Ampadu, interventions and blocks are absolutely massive. You always see him getting involved in this. But Pascal Struijk, in the 5 games that he had at Leeds United before, obviously, he left out and he went out the side, he had 22 blocks and interventions in those games. Now, Ethan Ampadu has also got a really high rate when it comes to blocks and interventions. But believe it or not, everybody, in defensive midfield, he was averaging way more blocks and way more interventions, which is significant, because not only is he helping out a blocker in Pascal Struijk and a blocker in Joe Rodon, but those numbers aren't diminishing at all in comparison to defence and midfield. If anything, in midfield, it's a hell of a lot more successful. And I wanted to just give a little bit of validation as well to Pascal, because there's a lot of people who seem to think that he's error-prone. This season, he's made 1 error that has led to a goal in the entire season, and he played so many minutes, obviously leading up to his injury. As I've mentioned, 13 out of the 14 leading up, he was captain as well. 1 error that led to a goal, and that was against Swansea City. Now, let me just read out to you the rest of that game for Pascal Struijk. It was probably the more memorable one in terms of that goal, that error that led to a goal. He had most progressive passes, most accuracies, most accurate passing in the side. He had 92% that night. More completed passes than anyone else. And he also had 3 shots. So that's probably one of his worst games of the season because his massive error led to a Swansea City goal. But the rest of the game, he was absolutely imperious. Ethan Ampadu in midfield as a number 6. More tackles than at the back. More interceptions. And then when we bring in Elia Gruev, Ethan's numbers are just far superior. We can talk about short, medium, long passes. Short and medium passes are very, very similar, but we know Elia likes to do that. Getting the ball, ticking it over, moving laterally, moving sort of between the defenders, but not really opening his body as much. Ethan Ampadu would get the ball, open his body up, and that is definitely evidenced by the fact that his long passes in defensive midfield were also a lot more than what Elia Gruev's are. Elia Gruev's short to medium passes are very similar to what Ethan Ampadu's were in the middle, which is clearly what Daniel Farke likes to do. You don't really lose anything with Pascal coming back into defence. If anything, you gain a lot more with Pascal. Elia Gruev's shorter and medium passing is as good as Ethan Ampadu's. There is no metric at all from what I can find that Elia Gruev is above Ethan Ampadu. If you guys can fire some in the section below, please let me know. Ethan Ampadu is a more complete number 6 than Elia Gruev, and Pascal coming in at the back is a better defender than Ethan Ampadu, backed up by pretty much every metric you can find. We brought Wout Faes in there, who is probably maybe when we're talking about the top 3 defenders in the division, up there with Rodon and Pascal. Wout Faes' numbers are similar, if not worse, than Pascal Struijk. So I don't really understand the argument. I sort of get it from a sort of recency bias at the fact we've done okay. But Pascal Struijk comes into this side, Leeds get even better. Ethan Ampadu going back into the midfield, Leeds get even better. There's already a synergy between Ampadu and Kamara. They've done it earlier on in the season. It worked very nicely. I don't understand the hysteria, to be honest, around this not changing a winning side. I would change a winning side, and Daniel Farke will change that winning side if Pascal Struijk is available and fit. So, yeah, Elia Gruev is doing okay, but Ethan Ampadu in midfield, more tackles, more interceptions, more blocks, better passing accuracy, better passing distribution when it comes to short, medium, and long. I don't know what we're looking at here, guys. For me, Pascal Struijk comes in and he gives Leeds an elevation, not only at the back, but in midfield. Pascal is a better defender than Ethan Ampadu. Ethan Ampadu is a better midfielder, number 6, than Elia Gruev. Let me know what you think, everybody. Fascinated to hear what you think in the comment section below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Head on over to the Patreon as well, and I'll see you on the other side. Cheers.